Hi, my name is Ivana Grigorjević and I am from Belgrade, Serbia. This time I have a message for our Greek family. This one is even longer than the previous one, so I will read it as well. Okay, so I'm as Serbian as one could ever be, and I need to emphasize this every time, since not all the people living in Serbia right now are really Serbs, and I mean this in every possible negative way. Today is 25th of June 2022, and I have an important message, like I said, for our Greek brothers and sisters, not just the ones living in Greece, but for the Greeks from all over the world. The reason why you are scattered all over the world instead of living in your beautiful native land is the same one that the rest of our family, friends and allies have, and that's the fact that so-called our governments were and still are nothing but puppet governments set up by occupying forces. This is one of the reasons why these messages are, amongst other things, my plea to all of you to come back home to your native lands as quickly as you can. Of course, there might be some of you who actually enjoy living in some other country, but even if that is the case, this message is still for you as well. No one would fight for Greece for you, and no one could ever do that in equally honest and brave way as you would. And also because the war has already started, I think you should leave USA, Australia, Britain and many other European countries to their chosen destiny. And they have chosen it long time ago when they and their servants attacked us all and stole everything that was ours. And this is my message to all our friends and family, Russians, Greeks, Romanians, to my Serbs living abroad and longing for Serbia, to Irish and Scottish people, to Jews, part of them, not all of them are our friends unfortunately, to Japanese, Chinese, Indians, I mean Hindu, but also Native Americans or American Indians, to Italians. I will explain why Italians some other time, even though I already did it on my Facebook profile page, to Egyptians, Libyans, Iraqis and probably some more Arab people, to black people, you know, not the Hollywood black people like Tupac, Ice-T, Dr. Dre or other hypocrites who sold their own for fortune and fame, but the real black people all over the world, to indigenous peoples from Australia, Aborigines and others, because there are a lot of people who suffered throughout the history by being enslaved and their country being colonized. And also to all righteous people everywhere as well. First of all, I need to ask you for three things. Please watch all of my videos, because there are many things that I said that are not only for those peoples and nations that I mentioned in the titles. It's much broader than that, and everything, and I mean everything, is important and connected. Watch it all and you will see and understand what I mean. Please watch those videos I made in Serbian. I didn't have the time to translate them, so if you have some Serbian friend to help you with that or other way to translate it, do it, because it's extremely important. Second thing is, please spread this message to other Greeks as soon as you can. And finally, stay with me until the end of this video. There is one thing that you might not like right away, but I just want you to listen to what I have to say and think about it for a moment. What I'm asking you here is to use your cold Greek logic, no emotions, just logic for that one issue, because that's what I like to do every time I have to seriously think about something. But I will get to that one thing later. Now, there are so many things I have to say to Greek family, but unfortunately not enough time to do that in this way, which is why I invite you to check out my Facebook profile. You will find it easily. It's under this same name and it has a cover photo which is the same as my profile picture here on YouTube. And as a profile picture on Facebook, I have 3 griffin vultures, which is the symbol of the sacred Serbian royal dynasty Nemanjić. But that's also partly a Greek royal dynasty, and I will get to that soon. There on Facebook you will find absolutely everything I wish to tell you. Just look for the posts from March 2020 until now. Even if some things look like they are not connected, they are. Just follow the flow of my thoughts and you Greeks will be able to connect the dots. And I believe some other people will do it as well, especially because all indigenous warrior type of peoples are also highly intelligent. If we weren't highly intelligent, amongst other things, since this is not our only quality, we would have never survived the horrible past and heavy heritage we all have. That's why ultimately we are one family and one tribe. I have seen so many pathetic idiots reading and interpreting my Facebook posts through time. They just couldn't understand what I was saying, but at the same time they would gladly see themselves as incredibly smart and educated. Some could understand parts of my thoughts, but then they just couldn't live with the fact that they didn't realize all those things I did and as quickly, and from that point they would either try to imitate me or they tried to mock me. Remember, those people are not us in any way. Their origin and upbringing makes them who they are, just like ours made us. But it was fun to watch all of it, and I promise you that you will be amused by it as much as I was. And this is not some bitterness. They actually provided me with some more information that I wouldn't be able to gather otherwise, which is why I always pay close attention to what they have to say. And you should do it too, because it concerns you Greeks as well. There is no closer family in the world than Serbs, Russians, Greeks and Romanians, and we all know why. Probably the most important part of this message is to remind my Greek family that Saint Sava Nemanjić was a son of Stefan Nemanja, but Stefan Nemanja's wife, and that was Saint Sava's mother, was of noble Greek origin, and she also became a saint later. Saint Anastasia is her name. So, Saint Sava, the founder and first Archbishop of Serbian Orthodox Church, was half Serb and half Greek. And that means that the most sacred bloodline of Nemanjić, who were the only real Serbian royalty and at the same time the most powerful European royalty of their time probably, was and still is as much as Greek as it was Serbian by blood and genetic code. And it's the same Orthodox Christian Church, and I am not emphasizing this for no reason here. Serbian Orthodox Church gained its autonomy from the start, and it was all thanks to our Saint Sava. All of this is not some stupid propaganda fairy tale, but a historical fact, so it's not negotiable or debatable. Now, for those who didn't know all this or didn't think about it in this way, please pay close attention now. I have already promised you that this is important. So why is all of this so important right now, more than ever for Serbs, Greeks, Russians and Romanians particularly? Please check out that video I have made for our Russian family. There is a part about the scum from the cult Order of Malta, which is one of the main cults that infiltrated and occupied our Serbian Orthodox Church and government. And that happened a long time ago. It's just that I discovered it recently. They don't even hide. They don't hide their members. They don't hide their intentions. They believe they are a Santa Claus and they worship only Bulgarian so-called Saint Petka. And I know I thought she was a genuine saint as well, but now I'm sure she wasn't. Overall, they exposed themselves and they did it proudly, which is a feature of every pathetic parasite ever. Just go to their website and you will find there a lot of people from all prominent members of all puppet Serbian governments so far, all our fake patriarchs and that pathetic English slaves Karađorđević dynasty. Just go to https://orderofmalta.org.rs. Pay attention to the fact that this is the same cult who tried to bribe Momir Bulatović, an ex-president of Montenegro, to sell them 3 of our Serbian sacred relics. There is a video of him talking about that. You can find it on YouTube, and I have mentioned it more than once on my Facebook profile. You should really read all of that. And here's why. Some of you probably know about those events in Montenegro in 2020, when a lot of our people decided to rise up and resist the plan of Milo Đukanović and the rest of American, British, German, Albanian and God knows who's else marionettes living in Montenegro, to steal our Serbian, and that means Saint Sava's monasteries and churches that belong to Serbian people and no one else since its beginning, and to make them a private property of cults, Milo and his thieves and other parasites. But our people had heroically risen in such a large number that it made that plan impossible to become reality. This made me even more proud of my Montenegrin origin. So here are some logical questions that I've already laid out there in my Facebook posts quite some time ago. First, if our people in Montenegro won that battle in 2020, like they surely did, then why would high-positioned priests like Metropolitan Bishop Amfilohije and the one I like to call Padre Gojko Perović why would they go to negotiate like they did, and what they were negotiating about with Milo Djukanovic, fake Montenegrin opposition like DF, and all their multi-culti buddies. Because they did go to negotiate, it was a public thing, we all saw it. So who in their right mind does that? Why would you go to negotiate with the ones you called your enemies after you have completely defeated them? And you know you could easily do it again now that you saw for a fact that more than 100,000 people are ready to stand up together with you and rebel against that same already defeated enemy. You see, I always thought that why question is the most important question that a person could ever ask when it comes to the most basic and most decisive things in life. Because it reveals all kinds of nonsense and not just smart answers. But even a nonsense has a logical background, and that's the point I want to make here. We just need to find it, but there is a logic. That why gave me such a hard time in my own life, but at the same time it helped me more than anything else. For even when I don't find the answer, the fact that it was necessary to ask why is an answer sometimes, like it was in this case. And the next question is, what were they negotiating exactly? Well, my logical presumption was that it was about Santa Claus and more money, and not just money. Because that order of Malta is full of grown-up retards selling a story of Santa Claus because they actually present themselves as the ones who can make wishes come true, and without any serious consequences for those who make deals with them, and are obviously devoted Santa believers, being even worse retards. Sheeps, I like to call them. The very next thing that happened after those negotiations was a sudden virus outbreak in Montenegro, which previously had 0 infected people, even though it was wintertime with low temperatures and snow, and with more than 100,000 people outside walking and standing close to each other in enormously big crowds for a few months. Now you tell me, how's that possible? Both being so healthy throughout all of that and being so sick right after those negotiations. The whole world should see photos from those events and videos of Montenegrin Serbs protesting without being sick for so long time, and let them try to find answers for those wonders, because by now everyone should understand what was that all about. Let's just say there are some people who are stealing from those who are the rightful owners of many things, including holy relics, and it's really sick. So now that we know for sure that our priests are not ours at all, and I have already talked a lot about this on Facebook, I feel the real sympathy for our real monks, nuns and priests, if there are any of them left in our Orthodox Church, both Greek and Serbian. And this goes for Romanian and our Russian brothers as well, because it's quite visible, just like the case of Malta order, they don't even hide. Look at that temple Vladimir Putin had built in Moscow in 2020 and the statue in front of it. Look what he had put inside of that temple. That's not a church at all, and even less it could be an Orthodox Christian church. Stars, communist landmarks, military equipment and so on. And afterwards he tried to mock us Serbs by sending a statue of our Nemanja ruler to Serbia. That same Nemanja would rip off his retarded culty head in a split of a second just for building that temple. And there are some more videos on YouTube with Putin that reveal a lot about him being everything else but an Orthodox Christian he likes to be seen as. Sometimes we need to connect the dots, but some other times we don't even need to do that. It's very transparent. Those people obviously think that they are invincible and untouchable, and it is our duty to prove them wrong. No one is going to defend and save our church and our cultural and historical heritage for us. It doesn't matter if some of us are not quite convinced believers, if some are skeptics, it really doesn't matter. And even though I've already explained that too, I will repeat it once again. No one can force anyone else to believe in something, especially not in God. You can see that some grown-up people would rather believe in Santa Claus, and they do it so enthusiastically. Because to believe in God, one has to love Him, and I guess to understand Him to at least some extent. And just like any other true love, you can't buy it, and if you can't buy it, you can't sell it either. You can't force it, you can't hurt it, basically you can't have any power over it. You can do all of this to a relationship with some people, not all, but some people. That you can buy, sell, abuse, whatever. But you can't do that to true love for God or a person. You can force someone to become a member of a certain religion, but you can't force anyone to truly feel love for or believe in something or someone. Also, if someone can't leave a certain religion at any point, then that's a cult, because where there is no free will, it means that someone is using force and abusing people. And there is no cult in the world that celebrates true God. No exception spirit. This is a basic knowledge and common sense. Greeks actually know all of this. I am explaining it for others who might be interested in how we Orthodox Christians think. Love for God and justice is the greatest love of all, and living or dying for that was never a problem for true believers. Our rich history, Serbian, Russian, Romanian and Greek, is full of examples for what I just said. That's why we have so many real saints. We also have a few fake ones here in Serbia, but I'll talk about that some other time. I think that all of this is the reason why we, true Orthodox Christians, don't believe in converting non-believers by force, and why we have never been crusaders either. Now, with this being said, just as a person born in any of our countries, Serbia, Montenegro, Russia, Greece and Romania, has a right to be an atheist or skeptic, some other have right to be believers, devouts. And that means they have a right to go to their own church, free from members of various cults, foreign agents and members of other religions who infiltrated it a long time ago. Those of you who are true patriots but who are also atheists or skeptics should keep in mind that you have or will have or even just could have some family member or anyone else close to you, someone you love, that is a devout. So we should all be very concerned about everything that was and still is going on in our monasteries and churches. We should take great care about what is ours, backwards and forwards equally, which means to honor our ancestors and to save it for our children. Even if someone never goes to church, if you truly love your people and country, you know that our holy church is a part of our identity. It's our cultural and historical heritage. And beside Jewish religious treasures, it's the richest of that kind in the world. Why do you think they are stealing from us and from Jews for so long? And not just from us, from ancient Egypt as well, and from other polytheistic religions. It's not just about Christianity. Because there is a lot to steal, since we all have what they don't and could never have. And they want to abuse what they have stolen and make us fight each other instead of annihilate them. In short, ecumenism has set itself in our churches a long time ago, and everything is based on lies, stealing and actual separation and quarrels between us who are a real family. The latest news is a fact that contemporary fake Serbian fake Orthodox Church gave autocephaly to so-called Macedonian Orthodox Church. And this was so entertaining that even though the news are heavily censored, it was clear what had happened. The entertaining parts were those church leaders' explanations, and it's so stupid that only by watching and reading all of that one could guess that they could never be neither Serbs nor Orthodox. Now, my dear Greek brothers and sisters, you know what sophistry is far better than those pathetic idiots, because that's exactly what they were using while trying to explain and justify what they did. You should read news headlines on this subject and then all kinds of statements, but the truth is always simple, and this one is also obvious, so naturally they've got stuck in their own web of lies. And since they are shameless, they even said that by this act they ended the split and schism between Serbian and Macedonian church, whatever Macedonian church is, and then they held the peace liturgy for that occasion. So really, ending a schism by creating a schism. All of this would be hilarious if it wasn't so serious. So what do we have here, and why do I think that this is extremely important for Greeks as much as it is for Serbs? Well, first of all, this is the same scenario that those fake Serbian priests, who are actually members of cults and therefore just some cheap prostitutes, tried to act upon in Montenegro, and you can hear it clearly in speeches of Padre Gojko Perovic. He said everything right there in the camera. Please pay attention to this man, since he is none other than a priest who led the Orthodox Serbs in Montenegro when they were defending our sacred Serbian monasteries, relics and churches back in 2020. Milo Djukanovic wanted to sell it to Order of Malta and God knows to whom else, and to give that Montenegrin church independence from Serbian church. So now, how is that different from giving an independence to so-called Macedonian church? Well, it isn't, and that makes those same people a subject of eternal mockery. So the fact that this priest Gojko was the one who led the Serbs who stood up against this in 2020, and at the same time more than once made scandalous statements contradicting himself, is more than an irony. And it surely wasn't a coincidence, just like his friendship with Eliezer Papo is not a coincidence. I agree with one commentator who named Eliezer Papo as a professional Jew. Since you can't be the real one, I guess being a professional one is the next best thing. He is also a buddy with some Greek priests in Jerusalem, so pay attention to that too. Padre Gojko is a professional Orthodox Christian, just like Dragoslav Bokan is. The first one is a fake priest, and the second one is a genuine idiot who works for our prostitute President Vučić. That one I call Aunt Dragoslava. You can find my reasons for that on my Facebook profile page, and there are plenty. All of these people are part of the same circus. Now back to so-called Macedonian Orthodox Church and its so-called independence they gained recently. Well, you see, there is no such thing for at least two reasons. So let's use cold Greek logic and ask some basic questions. First, who are Macedonians actually? We need to clarify that and identify them in order to understand whose church is it. And what does it mean to be Macedonian, especially nowadays, since all this great independence thing is happening right now and not in ancient times? So, who brought Orthodox Christianity? That's the second question. Who brought Orthodox Christianity to a territory they now call Macedonia? Who built all those Christian Orthodox churches, and for whom? When did it happen? Was it in ancient times when real Macedonia existed? Because that would be fun, to have an Orthodox Christian church long before Jesus Christ even came to earth. These questions are important because nowadays so-called Macedonians are using those churches, and by that I mean both churches in physical sense and church as an institution. Do they even have a right to use them? Okay, so these are some basic questions, and now I will try to answer them in the most simple way I can, because there is always only one truth, and in matters like these, it's always simple. So who are those who call themselves Macedonians today? Well, I think you Greeks would agree with me on this one for sure, because these people from former Republic of Yugoslavia are the same one that you didn't allow to call themselves by your ancient Hellenic Macedonia that the whole world and history knows about. And you were right about that. Alexander the Great certainly wasn't of a Bulgarian, Albanian, or even Serbian ethnicity, and those are the peoples that live right now in this territory we are discussing, plus the ones born out of mixed marriages of mentioned peoples. So they are not the real Hellenic ancient Macedonians, and therefore by a simple logic this church can't be called Macedonian either. And even less can be independent from Serbian Orthodox Church. And that brings us to answering that other questions. So who brought Orthodox Christianity to a territory they now call Macedonia? Who built all those Christian Orthodox Church, and for whom? Again, this concerns not only us Serbs, but in a way Greeks as well, because the founder of Serbian Orthodox Church is, as we all know, and I said it, Saint Sava Nemanjić, whose father was Serbian King Stefan Nemanja, but whose mother was Greek woman from a noble Greek family. So nowadays so-called Macedonians are abusing and want to steal churches in terms of buildings and the whole institution of church that was built literally by Serbian and Greek royal family, whose members finished their lives by becoming saints. And that goes for Saint Sava's Greek mother too. So that Serbian Orthodox Church had and still has its autonomy, and its holy relics, buildings and everything else belonged exclusively to Serbian people. So this is the answer to questions: who built the Serbian Orthodox Church, when did it happen, and for whom was it built? And now we can post one last question, the most important one, and that is, who are Serbs? Because if Serbian Orthodox Church was built by Serbs and for Serbs, like it surely was, then we must identify Serbs as well. So Serbs were and still are simply all individuals with Serbian origin who live predominantly on territory of nowadays Serbia, but also in ex-Yugoslavia. Kosovo is understood here because it is Serbia more than any other territory in the whole world, and also from the territory that some call Macedonia today. Plus, all the Serbs who live all over the world right now are also Serbs. But by all this, I mean individuals of Serbian origin who are proud and loyal to our Serbian cultural, historical and religious heritage, because all of this is our true identity. It doesn't really matter if all of them are devout, because people can be skeptical about God's existence and his true nature and intentions for a lot of reasons, and I sympathize with that. Someone may have lived through some great tragedy or injustice, like I did, that they cannot understand or couldn't understand in terms of God's will. I struggled with that for many years, so when I say that I understand this, I mean it. But they may have or had someone close to them who is a devout, so they should respect the right of that person to fight for what's ours and only ours. And they should help with that too. They don't have to go to church themselves if they don't want to and if they don't believe. So all of this also concerns Greeks if we take into account that we are a true Orthodox Christian family, but also bound by a royal Serbian blood that was mixed with Greek royal blood, so that the Saint Sava Nemanjić could be born at all in this world and to do every amazing thing that he had done. So now you see how problematic is all this so-called Macedonian stealing of what's ours and only ours, and they have been stealing from Serbs and Greeks as well. They are not the real Macedonians, they are simply Bulgarians, Albanians, and mixture of these peoples, plus mixed with some Serbs also, unfortunately. And for the real Serbs living in that so-called Macedonia, because they also exist, I think they know they are Serbs, and those churches over there are theirs just like they are ours, and they already suffer enough for other reasons, so it has been stolen from them too. All of this is more than a reason for a war, and I am serious about this. This is something that has been going on for a long time now. And by the way, and while I'm at it, who built those so-called Albanian Orthodox Christian churches in Albania? For whom was it built and when? It's so easy to answer all these questions. We already did that. I told you that all of this was going to be a simple truth. And now about that thing I asked you earlier to forget about emotions for a moment and to use only a cold Greek logic, which is one of your greatest features. So again, let's ask a simple but important question. Why is it that a Greek Orthodox Christian church and Romanian too celebrate Christmas on the same day when Catholic Church does, and not when the rest of the Orthodox family? I believe you would agree that there is no closer family than us, and that means also in terms of religion, and our religion is exactly the same. I can't stress this enough. It's not some Bulgarian or Albanian version without any saints, or with the fake ones and or with stolen ones from other nations, but the real Orthodox Christianity. So Russians and Serbs celebrate Christmas on the same date, but Greeks and Romanians don't. Why? If anyone in the world who is not an Orthodox Christian, or maybe they don't belong to any religion at all, wants to find out the reasons for this difference, what would they find as an explanation? Well, the only thing that can be found is an explanation of a difference between Gregorian and Julian calendar, and that's all. But that's not the answer to such a basic question. Why? Because when a person finds the accurate answer to that question, that's when they find a true motive for anything. And for someone who values the truth above everything else, finding the true motive is a precious thing. It reveals the fact that there are two options to choose from, this existence of those two calendars. But when it comes to celebrating important dates in Christian religion, but the next two important questions are, When did Christianity as a whole start using those two calendars instead of only one? And the second question is even more important. When did the Greek Orthodox Church start using Gregorian calendar? Which calendar is older and closer to a time when Jesus Christ was here? You can feel insulted by these questions if that is your wish, but my intention is not to insult you. On the contrary, these questions clearly bother me a lot, but I believe that they should bother you even more. And by looking at the possible answers to these questions, we can see the connection with the rest of my message to you, especially the part about cults like Order of Malta and their interference and corruption inside all of our Orthodox churches. You Greeks are just not an exception to this, that's all. And this has nothing to do with Greeks as a nation, just like it has nothing to do with us Serbs, Russians and Romanians. Our peoples all suffer equally because of our churches being corrupted. And it is our duty to defend our heritage and faith. Just think about it. If you were a pope or a member of a cult, Masonic or other, or just some foreign agent who infiltrated Greek Orthodox Church at any point in history, what would you do to corrupt it if it was your greatest mission in life? You could never convince Greeks to become Catholics, that's for sure, and even less to become Protestants. Also, you wouldn't be able to corrupt all Greek monks, nuns and priests. And if there's going to be some war, like many times there was, and especially now, wouldn't you try to at least somehow separate Greeks and Romanians from other Orthodox, from Serbs and from Russians, and bring them closer to enemy in some way? Well, maybe that was the only thing they could try in order to bring Greeks a step closer to ecumenism. And at the same time make them quarrel with the real family because they don't fast at the same time and therefore they can't celebrate Christ at the same time. I don't think this is a small matter. And what would the greatest Greek saint of all time and a protector of whole Orthodox faith, Saint Nicholas, would say about all this? He is my favorite saint and my grandfather's Slava. I don't believe in Santa Claus, I believe in real Saint Nicholas. So here we are now, Greeks and Romanians celebrating Christmas with Catholics instead of with Serbs and Russians. Serbs having a church full of the most horrible scum from all over the world and from all of our enemy countries, and full of both cult members and foreign agents, and both racist and Nazi, and they feel like they should be generous with our church and give it as a gift to fake Macedonians, and all while acting as leaders of Serbian Orthodox Christians in Montenegro. Russians have a literal Satanist, Putin, who even builds their temples and no one protests against it. I don't know what Romanians have, but I presume they have some more problems in church as well. All of this has been going for so long, and it would be only worse and worse if we don't stop it.